This is a hard topic, but I've made this video in order to face my own feelings, but also to share my experience with you guys. And this is a common worry, problem, question asked in mental health treatment. In the beginning, when faced with a new medication or treatment, we often ask, myself included, will this medication change who I am? Will it change my personality? Will I still be me? So this video is going to explore my experience with that question. I've been on various heavy psychiatric drugs in the last 9 years, and I've had to face this question many times. And the whole reason I have to take meds at all is because I have schizoaffective disorder, which means that I experience symptoms of schizophrenia, such as delusions and hallucinations, but also symptoms of a mood disorder, such as bipolar or major depression. So with that out of the way, I'll start from the very beginning and cover the 3 big med changes I have experienced over the course of my treatment. During my senior year in high school, the first psychiatric drug I was ever put on was lamotrigine, or Lamictal as it's also commonly called. At the time, my mood disorder diagnosis was cyclothymia, which is a mild condition in which one experiences mild highs and mild lows in mood. I was started on lamotrigine because of that. Lamotrigine naturally is a mood stabilizer, and before lamotrigine, I would cry my eyes out in my physics class, be hyper as heck in my psychology class, and then the cycle would continue all throughout the school day. I lived in extremes. I was either all the way up or all the way down. There was no in between. And at this point, I had no friends because no one would put up with me. But once I went on lamotrigine, things slowed down. My brain slowed down. I didn't go up and down as much, and suddenly people wanted to put up with me. Suddenly I got friends. Personality-wise, I was still me. I ended up having concentration and memory issues shortly after starting lamotrigine, but given that's also when my symptoms got worse, I'm not really sure if it was the meds or the condition itself. And sure, I could no longer read a book and memorize every word, but I was still me. I was just a tamped down version. And my grades did fall a little bit because of this, but I still got into a top university just fine. So yes, lamotrigine did change who I was, but it changed me for the better. Because with lamotrigine, for the first time in a long time, I was stable. It was lovely. And to this day, 9 years later, I still take that rapidly dissolving white pill every night before I go to sleep. The next major drug I went on was something called Lithium, which is usually used to treat mania and bipolar patients, but at lower doses, it can also be used to treat bipolar depression. By the time I was put on Lithium, my depressive episodes had landed me a bipolar 2 diagnosis because they were no longer mild enough to be only cyclothymic. And this is the part of the video where we talk about something that, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's an elephant in the room, but it's something that people often worry about. And it's that if they start psychiatric medication of any kind, they will lose their spark. And I'm gonna tell you right now that I did lose my spark, but I didn't lose it because of meds. I lost it because of the disorder. I was literally the most depressed I'd ever been. I would live my life just to pass time. I wasn't enjoying things. I would just wake up, do things to pass time through the day, and then go back to sleep. There were no goals. There were no motivation. It was just, I felt like I was just floating in a shell of myself. My creativity had plummeted. Nothing that made me happy anymore. I had no spark to lose. So my doctor, when I asked him for help, he put me on Lithium for my bipolar depression. And to my complete surprise, I actually got my spark back. I was experiencing the opposite of what many people feared. I was bright again. I was more creative again. I was happy again. I was stable. It was awesome. So yes, Lithium did change who I was. It changed me back into who I used to be. It's just that this time I was less depressed. So, win. I no longer take it at such a high dose, but while I was on it, it greatly helped me. Finally, I want to talk about Zyprexa, an antipsychotic medication, arguably one of the more heavy categories of psychiatric medication. So a few years after I started Lithium, I became a little delusional. I didn't know I was schizoaffective, and I definitely didn't think I was psychotic, even though I've been hearing voices for years. But that psychotic episode was slowly getting worse and worse and worse. I went from being a bright soul to a girl that flew all the way to Japan for 2 weeks on a whim just because she physically wanted to be as far away from her problems as possible. And when I came back, I had a psychotic break. And without going into too many details, just know that psychosis became my life. It became something I couldn't ignore. I became so caught up in the psychosis and the mood swings that I no longer had anything beyond that. Psychosis was me. That was my life. That was it. I was nothing else. I was just someone who would wake up, deal with my psychosis, drink my coffee, and start my day. And I lost myself. I was no longer Kit. I lived in fear. I wasn't me. It was just hallucination after hallucination and delusion after delusion. I was just a depressed mess that didn't know up from down. I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. And after a while, it got bad enough that I realized I needed help because I'd reached the point where, for the first time in many years, I wanted to die. So I talked to my doctor and he put me on Zyprexa, a drug that made the voices shut up and the delusions go away. And slowly and surely, while being on Zyprexa, I got my life back, just like what happened with Lithium. Now, I still had to learn to find myself again because I needed to figure out what life was like without psychosis dictating everything I did. And honestly, I was the most stable I'd ever been since my mood symptoms ever started. And yes, I'm going back to even when I started lamotrigine. It was more effective than that. Now, I was different without my voices. I had to learn how to live with a quiet mind. And spoiler alert, when you don't have anyone to talk to 24/7, you get bored pretty easily. And I'll be honest, it took me probably a year to actually get used to being alone in my own head. And some days I still am getting used to that. And I went on Zyprexa for the first time 4 years ago. Without my moods and my psychosis, I almost felt normal. To the point where I wondered if I was boring now. Now, people have said many things about me over the years, but none of them have been boring. I'm not actually boring, but being without my moods and my psychosis, the things that had dictated my life for so long, well, what was I left with? And I was left with me. That's what it was. I was left with core Kit. So yes, Zyprexa did change who I was, dramatically changed who I was, but it's more that it changed me through managing my symptoms better rather than changing my core personality traits. For example, I still like making cosplays, I still love bees, and I still love making YouTube videos. And while I no longer have that fly high mania that I just talked about, I also don't have soul-crushing depression. Because of psychiatric medication, I get to live an arguably normal life. And that's where I am today. After many medication adjustments, therapy visits, lifestyle changes, I know who I am. I'm Kit. And I've always been Kit, and I always will be Kit. And so I'll ask myself this question one more time. Did my medications change who I am? And yes, they did, but only in the right direction. Because of medication, I've been able to build a life worth living. So from my perspective, when it comes to mental health treatment, I firmly believe that change is unavoidable. I firmly believe that proper mental health treatment will change you, but it will do it for the better once you find the right treatment that works for you. You won't lose your spark, you'll get it back, you'll gain stability. And so if you right now are facing a medication change, whether it's adding a new medication or adjusting a current one that you're on, just know that things might get better instead of worse. You might have to learn how to live life all over again, but it's worth it. Because for me, the less depression, the less psychosis I have, the better my life is. I'd be dead without my meds. I'd lose my spark all over again. And I hope to God, if you're in the boat of wondering if they're gonna change you or not, I hope things turn out well. I hope things turn out right. I hope that my results are similar to your results. I hope you get everything you want out of your treatment. And after all, mental health treatment is called life-changing for a reason. So what are your thoughts on this? Did your meds change who you were? I've told you my story, now I want to hear yours. And of course you can comment in the comment section down below, but if that's a little bit too public for you, I am on Instagram at SchizoKitzo and I will happily listen to your story. And with that, I will cut the video here. You guys have an absolutely amazing day and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.